Hello, friends. Jason here, checking in on the markets. Today, Dan is gone on a well-deserved vacation. If you don't know me, well, you're about to. I'm a partner, co-founder of the Chart Guys, one of the many faces behind the scenes. Not pretty enough to do most of the YouTube videos, but here we are. Regardless, if I get a haircut, maybe you'll see my face one of these days. We're going to follow Dan's routine. We're going to check out our indexes, the VIX, XLF, some of the sectors, and take a look at a few of the tickers that represent some of the key sectors that perhaps those spiders don't necessarily touch. We are going to start off by looking at how we got to today. Taking a look at the Hang Seng Index, this was down 4% yesterday. And this weighed heavily on the overall markets. And this is something that we talked about this morning as a potential shall we call it a draggard to drag us down to the downside. But we are waiting for those bulls to step into play. So what happens with the Hang Seng over the next 24 hours is going to be interesting because I'm very curious to see if the positivity that the bulls had at the latter part of today and SPY and the QQQ is going to have any sort of impact on the bulls over on the Hang Seng side of things. Or are they going to have another red day and is that going to impact us again tomorrow? And will the bulls be strong enough to fight off that sort of correlation? Well, we'll see what happens in tomorrow's video, but let's take a look at QQQ. I'm going to start here on the QQQ because we had an interesting thing that happened with our 2-minute trend line. We talked about this. Unfortunately, I cleared my charts for this video, but we had a strong 2-minute downtrend. That trend changed, and finally we got a back test of our trend, and we had a key level jumping at us at 362.25. We got our lower low. We broke that 362.25, and you go and correlate this with a lot of the tickers that started to see a surge in strength. It was that price action confirmation that really kicked things into gear and gave the QQQ bulls the optimistic setup for going into tomorrow's action. Big volume, big lower wick, bulls showing up again, proving to us once again that they were willing to buy the dip. They were just waiting for that moment where that shift of the bearish pressure reached a point of exhaustion, and that lack of bears gives the bulls an opportunity. And when they're ready to fight, and they have the best capacity for making bullish moves, they jump in and they push. And for what I'm seeing in the Chart Guys feed right now, there's a lot of good earnings reports coming out. At least the numbers look good. I'm seeing lots of beats on revs and guidance, things above normal. So that bodes well for QQQ having a positive day tomorrow. If we have time, we'll check in on a couple of those and see what those charts look like. But this is a nice strong push by the bulls. It's a lot of positivity, and it's a nice way to end the day after having a significantly bearish morning. See if we have the follow through, and if we do, we will be looking right back up at all-time highs to try and break 368.89. Right now, this is just a daily dip, and we see a lot of those, and so far, they're for buying. One day, those V-shaped recoveries will stop coming. But until then, this is healthy daily consolidation. Go over and take a look at SPY. SPY looks even better with a smaller body on that dip right above our EMA 12, comes right back up. Go to the 5-minute time frame. We can see the strength coming into play again here. Price action validation 437.37. We break that on good volume. Change trend 5-minute bull flag, higher lows, higher highs into the end of the day. Nice positive move after a significant downtrend for the majority of the morning. So our highs right back up at the all-time highs again. Seems we do this all the time. 441.03 is the target for the bulls, and a nice little brief bit of consolidation. So if all of these earnings that the market is waiting for are positive, that is certainly going to help the case for continued upside. The only thing that could really derail us at this point is, well, it happens all the time, a crazy negative reaction to positive earnings or FOMC this week. So we'll be keeping an eye out on that as well. Okay, we've covered SPY, we've covered QQQ. Let's take a look at the VIX. So the VIX today, as you would expect, had a little bit of a spike, but still within a normal range. I wouldn't suspect its ATR is too crazy. On the 4-hour time frame, higher lows and higher highs, all things considered, it looks relatively normal. We can see that correlated pretty well on the 5-minute time frame as well. A little bit more of a push into the end of the day as people get a little bit more uncertain. But overall, pretty positive response as far as the VIX being lower goes, and we'll keep an eye on resistance. If things get a little bit crazy, we got some overhead right here at 2044, and I'd love to see the bears push us back between, or I should say under 825. Nice little range that we are playing with right now. Let's take a look at, oh, we didn't check out IWM. So IWM, basket of smaller companies, smaller banks. reflective of, well, not the raging success 500 S&P companies, but nonetheless a good barometer for what's happening in the overall market. And the IWM has been on a little bit of a daily downtrend. I shouldn't say a little bit, it's been on a significant daily downtrend for the last little while. What we do have is a nice little area of resistance at works out to be a pretty magical number, 222 and 22. Red day today, as you'd expect, a dip and a nice close, very similar to what we saw on SPY and QQQ. Actually, a little bit of a stronger close if you ask me. 219.20 is our high a day. That'd be a nice target for us. What I'd love to see is for the bulls to establish this as a daily high or low, get over top of 222.22, and things are starting to turn around for the bulls with a low, lower low, higher low situation, and only a couple of major resistances on the way back up to the 233.41 area of resistance. I kind of like it. XLF. Still bundled up in this really, really tight range. And if we go to the 4-hour time frame, which we will, we'll start to look for squeeze potential. But we got a couple of resistances. In fact, we got quite a few resistances overhead, 36.78, 37.14. Those are going to be issues for us. A little bit of an outside bar from today's range. Let's go to the 4-hour time frame. We can see how this is clustering up, and this is when I start to look for that squeeze potential. Not sure we're going to get it, but let's load it up anyway. Fire up the old Anaconda. Not there on the hourly, just barely registering on the 4-hour time frame. But I can see that it is clustering together, and that has me interested. Why? Because the lack of range combined with the volume gives us opportunity. If we can break over 36.60, 36.78, we're going to be in a good position to try and get out of this big weekly and daily cluster that we have been inside of. A short-term resistance, get that out of the way. We're heading back up to 38.60. Let's see if the bulls have what it takes to do that. Other than that, it's pretty mediocre. Not a lot happening here. And going into the end of the day in the 5-minute time frame, just the most modest uptrend. Lose it. No real follow through. So lack of conviction on either side for XLF. XLV, complete opposite story. Daily time frame with a Marabuzzo close, which means we have our open. Bears push, bulls push all the way back, and then some, closing at the high of the day. Generally, that gives us a lot of momentum and positivity going into tomorrow. So we will be looking for a strong open. 131.61 is our high. Looking for that to be our resistance. Let's go to the 5-minute time frame and see how positive this was. Look at that. Controlled for most of the day. Midday slump. Bulls step it back up. Break 131.16. Close on strength on big volume. A lot of momentum in this one heading into the end of the day. So what will we look for from a bear case? Well, we have it could constitute a 4-hour bear flag. We'd be looking for a rejection under 131.60, and we'd need to see a more profound loss of these lower lows. We've talked a lot about bull cases. That's mostly what people want to hear about, but we need to think about both sides of the story. What would a bear case look like? Well, a bear flag, or I should say a bull flag, would have us looking for a lower low under 131.61. It's the volume that we would get on the new lower low that follows that would really dictate whether or not we're looking for continued downside. But all things considered, this Marabuzzo close looks pretty good for continuation going into tomorrow. XBI, if this is a daily downtrend, and indeed it is, we see lower highs and lower lows. This is an area where we would expect to see a lower low form. We're under 123.67. We have a big volume push. Bears push down. Bulls bought that dip. It really comes down to what sort of momentum do we have going into the end of the day, and when have we seen, if we have seen, an hourly trend change. So far, we have not seen that. Lower highs, lower lows, and despite the strength of this dip and the volume that is there, we still haven't changed the trend. If bulls can get over 124.49, it's going to look a little bit different, and this may constitute an hourly high or low. But for now, what we're looking for is continuation until we see a change from this trend. We expect continuation, and we are looking for a possible higher low over 120.62, but the most likely outcome, of course, is going to be a lower low to follow suit with what we have been doing. We always expect the market to do what it has been doing until it changes course, and we use price action to validate when that has actually changed, just like we did on QQQ on the 2-minute time frame. I wish I had this chart out. I may just pause this recording. I have that technology. There we go, technology employed. 2-minute time frame. We had this 2-minute downtrend for the duration of the morning. Finally, we changed the narrative. We changed the story. We get our 2-minute lower low. Then we start trading sideways, set that key level up right here. We break it, and we change the direction for the day. Okay? So that is what we are looking at, and we want to see on something like XPI on the hourly time frame. All trends are fractal. The same rules apply to all trends in all time frames. We need to see a higher low or higher high. We need to see the narrative change that has currently been in place on the hourly time frame since the 22nd. Once that is done, bulls are going to be in a great position. And on the daily time frame, we've already talked about this, high volume, like right where we expect to see that lower low form. This is a good area for the bulls to change course if they want to. It's going to fit the narrative of the daily time frame. We want all of these stories to work together. That's the best thing for us. ARKK. So early today, growth was a nice signal that the market was starting to turn around. We had positive volume. We started to see some spikes. We broke over a key level, 117.67, and just carried it right away. That was a beautiful little area of resistance. We got a double top on the 5-minute time frame, and we just carried it on right around the same time. PLTR, of course, that was the signal. The big volume coming in here in the break of 21.37. Then we go over and look at ARK and see what ARK is doing. Breaks right through 21.37, right through 21.53, closing day pretty strong in what could constitute a 50-minute bull flag if we had enough time left in the day. Go to the daily time frame. Nice little spot. Come on, you can do it. There we go. To try and get this low, high, higher low, and possibly a fight back up toward 22.68. Get over top of that. We've changed the daily trend, my friends. A lot of work to do to get there, but of course, that's what we have to start planning for. Next up, TAN, sunshine. Let's harness the power of it with positivity. We are looking for 87.57 as our high. We got a low at 77.49. We'd love this to be our higher low. Get into an expanded daily EQ range. Because if we look at this high, high, low, lower, high, possible higher low into a daily equilibrium, that would just be absolutely beautiful. And it'd be really, really nice for the, well, I just like seeing good patterns. And good patterns give us good opportunities, and that's what I like to see. So again, we need to go look at the narratives. We have a story as to why we are in this trend. Each of these moves is a trend and a counter trend, and each one of those has its own subsections of highs and lows, and it's up to us as analysts to go in and take a look at each individual high and low and try to dictate what that trend looks like. So 85.91, you get the idea. We're moving lower and lower. Have we changed the trend yet? No. But if we stay inside this pattern, what that would look like would be a low, higher low, and then a bull break on the hourly time frame to change course, just like we did over here. Lower highs, lower lows, come down, higher low, break 82.49, back to the upside. Okay, we do lose some opportunity as we wait for the changes in these directions. But once we have the trend moving in our direction, our short-term trades, our 5-minute flips, our 2-minute flips, our scalps get way, way more conviction behind them. And that's what we want to do. Next up, MSOS to the downside. Bearish continuation, unfortunately. 34.50 is our next daily support. Below that from the weekly time frame, 33.47. We have our high near double top, close enough, 3-cent spread, multiple days apart. That's a double top to me. Drop down, sympathetic bounce, doesn't even get to EMA 8, so this is a relatively weak chart. And if we go to the hourly time frame, we can see that that trend is actually accelerating to the downside. Let's go to the 15 and get a better look at that. Where are we here? Yes, so here's our trend. And we can recognize trend acceleration by dropping below or above what our trends are currently following. So if I connect this low to this low, hopefully you can see it. We get multiple touches. Actually, let's get the right levels here. There we go. Sure. Doesn't need to be exact for this anyway. Lower lows, lower highs, and unfortunately we drop right through that trend. So our trend is accelerating to the downside. We get into a little bit of an EQ situation over here. Now what we're going to look for, let's get rid of this one. And we're going to get rid of this one. And we're going to use these drawings. And this is the reason I draw, is because it gives me visual representation for when behaviors change. And technical analysis is all about psychology and recognizing psychology through price action. If we can get over top of 35.20, what does that do? It changes the trend on the 15-minute time frame. And it gives me a low. Then I can look for a lower high, a higher low, and then just maybe, we start to recognize when our low is set and we can look for another lower high. And that's all we're doing at that point. It's just looking for that lower high and more continuation. Why? Because we expect the trends to do what they have been doing. That's why we look for continuation. GDX on the daily time frame. Nice little cluster of action up here. So there's clearly some resistance ahead over 33.81. Multiple days of us bashing around in here, and this starts to look a little bit more squeezy. Let's see if we can get that going. Yes, there's our squeeze. Multiple indicators coming into play. We got volume, we got momentum, we got trend disparity, and we have a clear area of resistance 33.81. You want to get a little bit more specific than that? Sure. 33.76, even more specific. Let's get to the actual number, 33.77. Break over top of those levels. We have minimal resistance all the way up to 35.15. So a lot of potential if the bulls can get something going and break out of this expanding range. I was about to call it a downtrend because we are seeing lower lows, but hey, we're seeing higher highs as well. So that shows us instability. It shows us areas with a relatively little resistance inside them. And if we can get a bull break, we got a relatively clear shot all the way up to, what's that number? 35.03. Okay, last one, gold. Daily time frame. I'm not really so much interested in the daily time frame. And that is because our EMAs are just clustering together, which means we don't really have a useful trend. We either have to go up here on the weekly time frame to look for a trend, in which case we're at a moment of balance. We're at an inside weak shape right now. Still a lot of time left to change the course. But in the 4-hour time frame, we're clustering around lower lows and higher highs, no follow through. So that tells me that this is a hands-off trade, and it gives us no clarity in the 4-hour time frame, no clarity on the 4-hour, and we got to go pretty much right into the 15-minute time frame. Even here is a lack of clarity. So moment of equilibrium for gold. What would we look for? What would be some key levels for us to be more interested in some potential trades? What I'm going to have to do is go mark out these zones of resistance and support. So this is telling me that I have basically rectangular trading inside these ranges, and I am not interested in trading them until we get outside of these ranges. And we're going to recognize that this changes by getting well outside one of these zones of support and resistance on good volume, back test it, and then we are on a new trajectory. So I'll be watching that for gold. I think I've moved through everything that I can, and I'm going to take a quick look at AAPL. See if those earnings have come into play yet. A little bit of volatility all over the place. All right, not enough to report on quite yet for these earnings. Thanks for watching, and we will do another video tomorrow. And have a great trading day. I'll talk to you in no time at all.